Hey.
Hello. All right, here we are. We're back after 2 weeks of break. I'm done traveling. I'm finally home in North Carolina. Hi, Marianne.
Hey, Marianne.
We'll sit here and wait a second, give some other folks a chance to get in. As y'all are coming in, say hi if you're in the chat. For those of you who don't know, Wendy, hi. We
Hey,
um
Wendy.
we won't know you're there if you don't say hi. So please say hi so that we know. And if you have not tuned into the show, hey, Susanna, if you haven't tuned into the show before, this is Tilted Bench. Show is about coaching. It's conversations about what coaching is, what it does, why it works, how it works. Hey, Chad. Chad is my realtor here in North Carolina. So he's in the house for
Wow.
us business-wise. It's so awesome that you made it,
Well, no,
Chad.
I know we have two realtors on then, because Marianne is a realtor too, and
Oh, nice.
Marianne is in the Dallas area, so we might as well plug the realtors in the room.
That's fantastic. Definitely. Absolutely. Hey, Neil. So I'm on the East Coast in North Carolina. Tanya's coming to us from the West Coast.
Yep.
Remind me whereabouts, Tanya?
Well, I live in the San Diego area. I live in Oceanside, but I'm currently at my daughter's home in Oregon. So I'm using her office.
How long of a drive is that?
2 days. It's about a 16 to 18 hour drive, depending on what kind of traffic you hit going through LA. So I typically do it in 2. I've always done it in 2 days because my mom lives right smack in the middle. So I'll stop, hang out with my mom for a day or two, and make it back up to the Oregon area on day 2. I keep saying I'm going to do it in 1 day and check it out. I have not done it yet. Yeah.
Oh, are you seeing the chat overlay was giving me a bug over here?
Yeah, it's so cool to see it on a guest point of view, because yeah, this is very cool.
The chat overlay over there on the other side of Tanya, you guys, is where we'll see all of the conversation. That's on because she and I are both streaming, so there will be comments from both sides. So wherever you are, if you're not seeing all the comments, make sure you keep an eye out over that way. Over that way, and keep an eye on them. Tanya, why don't you go ahead and kick us off? Tell us about what you do, what kind of coaching work you do, and how you got into that.
Okay, well, how I got into it is that I was living in Houston, Texas at the time, and I was going through a divorce, and I was a real estate agent, and my income was always discretionary. Like if I sold a house, great. If I didn't, no big deal. And then I became a single mom of 2 children. My ex moved out of state, and suddenly I realized that my income had to actually count. If I had a swimmer, I had a ballerina, like I have 2 daughters. And so I hired, well, let me back up. So I'll give my mother a plug, which doesn't happen very often. So my mom's like, she's in California, because most of my family's in California. And my mom's like, well, come home. And like, well, my daughter's the captain of the swim team, and my other daughter has a solo in the Nutcracker, and I'm thinking they're not going to want to move, right? So I talked to them about it. Obviously, they didn't want to move. And so then I listened to my mom, and she said, well, then you need a business coach. And so I did. I hired a business coach. I hired a real estate business coach, and the rest is history. So for the next 7 years, I coached with her, grew my business every single year. It was like I started out making 40,000, and then I made 80,000, and then I made 160,000. Then I was over 200,000, and she also helped me get through my divorce as well. It wasn't just business; it was life. And then this company recruited me in to coach for them. And the joke around that is both my daughters went to college. So now I've got college age, daughters. One went to San Diego. The other one went to Pepperdine in Malibu. And I'm in Texas. My ex is in Maine. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Yes, I have a phenomenal business. However, anybody that knows me knows my core value is my family, my relationships. So they hired me, and I started coaching for them, and I moved to, Carlsbad, California, San Diego. So my kids always tease me that I followed them to college, and I did. in essence. Like what college students want mom to follow them off to college. And so I coached for them for 7 years, and it's how I got connected to some phenomenal people who are actually here on the conversation. And then about a year and a half ago, management changed. Some of the rules around COVID changed. It was no longer something that was in alignment with my values with working with this company any longer. And so I started my own coaching company. So here I am. So now I'm a business coach. I coach a lot of real estate agents just because I was in the field for so long, coached, worked for a real estate coaching company. So I do love coaching anybody in the real estate industry. I have, 3 lenders that I coach, and I coach others. I call it the others, right? So I coach an attorney, I coach a roofer, I coach a landscaper, I coach a gal that has a stationery business, and I'm just now onboarding a new client who's a physician's assistant. So it's not around their business, it's more some of the life things that he's going through that he wants coaching on. So there is the other category, but my passion is definitely around the real estate field, for sure.
That's great stuff. So I have to ask, the roofer and the landscaper, are those folks that you connected with through the real estate connections?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All my business is probably 99% by referral. So yes, all my clients so far, pretty much all but one, are referrals from, either my realtors or a referral from the roofer. But yes, referral based for sure. And that's really how I, want to encourage my clients to work too.
Tanya, I don't know if you're seeing it on your side, but on my screen, I'm not seeing any comments in the overlay.
I'm seeing them.
You're seeing them? Okay. Well, I'm not seeing them. Restream is doing whatever to me. But I do have LinkedIn open so I can see it too. So it looks like they're all showing up the way it should be. Charity, Tracy, Nadine, Donna, I'm glad all of you have joined us. We've got a lot of great folks in the audience here. Tanya, in the middle of...
said she loves the mom promotion. My mom's not hearing this. I'm sure she's not, but boy, if she were, you'd hear about it.
Well, you can show her the replay, right? Or we could just clip out that one part and you can send it to her.
And once in my life, listen to my mother. Yes.
In the midst of all of those different kind of clients, this is always something that's kind of fun to hear different coaches' opinions on. What do you have an ideal client? And if you'd rather not look at it from an ideal client standpoint, what are the things about clients that you click with most? What works the best for you?
So I don't say my ideal client is a realtor or a lender or a roofer. My ideal client is somebody who is open to experiment with what's going to work for them to get to their goals. Because my superpower is being super creative with helping them get from point A to point B. So my job is that here's my client right here, and this is where they want to be. And I kind of walk in the middle, getting them over here. But every single person has a different walk. Their journey is going to be a little bit different because of a lot of it is just our lifestyle. Like with you, Nathan, right? There's 3 kids in your home, right? So when I coach a single gal or a guy versus somebody that has 3 kids under the age of 5, which I do, that journey is different. And how I design their tactics and their strategies has to be different. It's not the same. Thanks, Tracy. We all have superpowers, by the way. Yeah.
But one of the things that I've heard a lot of people say about coaching is that, coaching is about kind of standing in the middle, like you said. You're not pointing out the path directly for people, handing them a map and saying, okay, go do these things. You're kind of a companion helping them find their own way there, because everybody's path is going to be different. It's crazy to expect us to go about the same way.
Yes. And I'm going to show my age. Some of it, or, if you're calling from another country, you might not understand. So I'll do my best. So Nathan, do you remember the AAA and how you'd get triptychs if you wanted to go on a trip? So we'd get them right.
Okay. Yeah.
So, so you get it. So, so here, in the States, you'd walk into a building, it's AAA, Automobile Club of America. You'd walk in and you'd say, you know what? I want to travel from San Diego to New York. And the person behind the desk would ask phenomenal questions, which is what a coach does, right? Well, how fast do you want to get there? Do you want to go the northern route? Do you want to go in the middle and stop at the Grand Canyon? Do you want to go the southern route and go through the desert? Do you have kids? Do you want to stop at the Dinosaur National Museum? You got dogs. Okay, so then we need to know where the dog parks are, right? And then you'd come back 24 hours later and get a map designed for you, right? So we could have.
It would give you the little, like the flip book
Yes,
thing, right? With all the pages.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's coaching. It's like, I've got to ask questions, and how are we going to get there? And what times are you able to work? And what days, like for me, I used to, when I was in real estate, I was in a carpool. And so 1 week a month, I couldn't work out in the afternoon because I was carpooling kids to swim practice. My youngest swam all the way through college. And, so that, I had to redesign my map on that week that I'm carpooling. So I have to really figure out what my client is doing, what their priorities are, what their values are, what their family life looks like. And then we design that triptych. I can't just do it the same for every people. That would make my life really easy, but it doesn't work.
That's such I'm glad that you brought that up, because because of the nostalgia of it.
Yes.
But also it's a fun bit of imagery to play with when you think about like Google Maps or Waze or something like that a lot of us use now. Like it doesn't ask you any questions. Like you tell it, I want to go from here to there, and it just gives you a route and says, we'll go this way. And that's more like
I think it might ask one, like, do you want to avoid toll roads? Right. I think that's the only question you get. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even so we just drove back here to North Carolina from New York. And during part of the trip, we wanted to be off of the interstate. So yeah, I had to go into the settings and like change a setting with Google Maps to do that. But, otherwise, like I have to do all the work to tell it what I'm trying to do and what I want out of it. But with a coach, when you're hiring a coach, like you're hiring a coach to do that work for you, because I think it was Brian Berman who said a while back that you don't even necessarily, the client, don't necessarily know what questions you need to be asking. So the coach is there to ask you the right questions to prompt those.
Correct. Yeah. And, you could, and I have a coach, right? And as I'm growing my coaching company, sometimes we just don't see things ahead of us because we get overwhelmed, right? And we need somebody to kind of open up our peripheral view because we're kind of stuck right here in the weeds. And that's, like I say, when someone says like, who's your hero? First thing I always think of is the coach that got me through my divorce and growing, a really successful real estate company. I went from the bottom of the ladder to number 2 in Houston. I didn't do that on my own. I might have been able to, but it would have taken longer. I would have made a lot more mistakes, right? It, wouldn't have been maybe quite as efficient. I don't know. I don't want to go back and try.
Well, we talk about heroes, that's a fun word, because we talk about them, and we talk about them very often in this kind of static way, that like a hero is somebody out there that you see and you want to emulate or whatever. But you're talking about your hero being somebody who was a companion, who was somebody you had a relationship with, who was active in your life to help you do something. And that's a lot more powerful than just something that's symbolic.
Yeah. And doesn't mean I liked her all the time. Like there are plenty of times I hung up the phone and went, oh man, I don't like her. Right. Because she'd make me look in the mirror or something, Yeah.
Nadine says that she likes that you have a coach and that her therapist has a therapist. This is another theme that comes up very often in these conversations about coaching, is that coaches need coaches. We all need help. And if we're going to help others, we need that help ourselves to help us make sure we're in the right place to be helping other people.
Imagine if everybody on earth had a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
imagery. I think it was episode 3 when I had Caitlin Richards on, and she was talking about coaches and therapists. She's like, I have a coach and a therapist. I think everybody should have both, because they don't do the exact same thing, but everybody needs that stuff. You need a therapist to help you figure out the mishaps of the past or processing whatever. And then you need a coach to help you understand kind of your present and where you're going and how you find your path to get there.
Yeah.
we were talking before we started, and I know this is something that you're going to leave us with at the end also. But you had mentioned to me, and you guys missed out. Tanya was already dropping nuggets of wisdom before I hit go live. But you were talking about the importance of grace, that, we all have our different paths. We all have to figure out that way. And that grace is an important part of that. What's it like when you're navigating that with people and trying to help them get a grip on that?
Well, we're all going to fail. And I know this is almost a cliche, like failing is learning. And that is, hey, Paul, people are, some of my clients will say, oh, I'm so tired of hearing that failing is learning. And it is what it is. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have a bad week. We might set a goal like Sunday, I'm going to do 5 LinkedIn posts ahead of time, and I'm going to do my 4 videos. And then Sunday comes and I don't do any of it. Right. And I don't do that. I don't blow off my stuff very often, but every once in a while I hit the wall and I need to just rest and play. And there needs to be grace. It's not letting myself off the hook. If I did that, like if I set a commitment every Sunday to do it and 7 Sundays go by and I never do it, maybe that's not grace what I need. I need to call my coach. However, it's not very often that I don't hit my action steps. And when I do, I'm really good now of giving myself grace and my clients grace. Now, again, if it's week after week after week and they're not moving the needle, then that's a whole nother conversation. But just giving ourselves grace that, life happens. Kids get sick. My mom gets sick. And so I'm supposed to go live tomorrow and I'm taking my mom to the doctor instead, right? I'm not going to feel guilty that I can't go live tomorrow, So grace,
I think
is my favorite word.
I love that word too. And, Chad's talking about resistance here. I think this is that there are these parts of us that push us in different directions, or that stop us from moving forward. When we talk about moving the needle, there are certain things that we have to press through, and there can be a push and a pull. Sometimes you need from a coach the accountability to keep going, to push against that resistance, to keep making yourself better, which is what moving the needle is all about. But then also you do need that voice sometimes that reminds you it's okay to be human, right?
Yeah. And I like, I don't know if it's so much of a balance than a blend, because I will ask my client, are your decisions getting you closer to your goals, or are your decisions getting you further away from? Right. And if it's a consistent pulling away from, then that's, how are we going to start making better decisions that are getting you closer to your goal? Because, our yeses and nos are super important. And I still want grace in there too, right? We're kind of blending it all together and figuring out the balance around all of it.
Tanya, do you know this that Nadine's asking about?
No, I don't.
Grace? I'm not familiar with this
info, please.
We'll have to find out more about that later.
Yeah.
So we've titled this episode "Moving the Needle." Is that a phrase that you like to use specifically with people very often?
I do. And because of that, I also have my signature workshop that I do once a quarter. So once a quarter, I have a workshop called Move the Needle, Not Your Average Goal Setting Class. And I don't charge for it. So I have one coming up this Friday, 10 o'clock Pacific. If you want to hop on, please feel free. It's 90 minutes on Zoom. And this time it is open for anybody who gets stuck with setting a goal. If it's a weight loss goal or a monetary goal or a business goal or a relationship goal, it doesn't matter what profession you're in for this particular workshop. Every other time I do it for realtors only. So next quarter, it'll be for real estate agents or lenders in the real estate field only. And then, so like I guess every other quarter it's open, and then I make it more specific. So thanks, Amber. I'm really excited that you're coming, and I'd love your feedback, good, bad, and ugly. I'm always open to, respectful feedback, but it can be good, bad, ugly, whatever you want. I'd love it. Yeah. So Move the Needle is, I can't say it's my phrase, but it's something I'm very passionate about, because I am driven, and hitting goals for me is super important. So, yeah.
One of the things that I love about the phrase is that a lot of the time when I've heard that phrase used, part of the point of using the phrase is that, the needle doesn't have to like jump, like it doesn't have to be huge,
Mm-mm.
like you just want something, anything. So when we talk about moving the needle, we're just talking about growth, even if it's small growth, because small growth is still progress.
It doesn't matter how small that baby step is, and sometimes the needle goes backwards, right? There is no, man, if I could have all my clients hit their goals going downhill in a straight line, like carefree, wind blowing in your hair, boom, we hit a goal, I'd be a wealthier woman today, right? I mean, that would just be so cool. However, there's backward, we lose gas and we go backwards, right? That's just a huge metaphor right there. If we burn out, we're not taking care of ourselves, self-care doesn't happen, those needles can go backwards.
We,
So yeah,
my
you got to watch those needle movements.
I think it was when I was in high school, my family had this, it was a Ford Taurus, I forget what year, but my mom would regularly like run the gas tank down really low. And this thing that
Mhm.
we all got to know her for saying was that, it would get low and she would just say, oh, it'll go back up. Because the car had this weird thing where somewhere around there, the gauge and the tank or whatever was kind of funky. So it would go back up sometimes a
That's
little bit.
funny.
So, I mean, I guess you could make that a point about mindset, right? Like sometimes your
Yeah.
needle goes down, but as long as you're remembering that eventually it's going to go back up, you'll be all right.
Yep. 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 And being in community, not just a coach. So yeah, obviously I'm a coach. So I, promote coaching because I do believe in it. I've had one since I was probably 35, and I'm a lot older than that now. So I believe in it 100%. And it's also who you hang out with, right? My grandfather used to say, you are who you hang out with. And, I believe that, the sense of community we've created, all of us, Nathan and Nadine and Amber, and, the community we're creating around LinkedIn is huge. And that helps us move our needles, right? Being in community with great growth minded people. So it's community is super important.
There's that thing about, you become like the five people or whatever you spend most of your time with. I mean,
Yeah.
there's probably something we could say about there being a magnetism to needles that, other people's needles pull our needle in the same
Yeah.
direction. And that if
Yeah.
we're spending that time with them, then we're going to get that effect.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes, hopefully we're not all in a funk at the same time. So there's somebody in there to reach down and, hold your hand through it. Wendy's creating a phenomenal community, and it's fills my heart, just fills my heart. So I love what Nadine said. Did the needle go back up because someone else put petrol in the tank? Sometimes yes. And sometimes we do it ourselves by resting. But yes, Nadine, absolutely.
Yeah. That in my mom's case, that's not what was going on. But
Nope.
yeah, I like the symbolism there though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to fuel up. And I mean, I,
Yeah.
I think coaches do that by creating a safe space for people too. Don't you, Tanya?
Oh, absolutely. That's why whenever I onboard a new client, I say it now, but I did in the beginning, and then I noticed a pattern that they wouldn't show up for a coach call if they didn't do their action steps. They'll say, "Yep, I'm not ready for my coach call. I'm going to reschedule." And then as I've been coaching now 10 years, I figured out it's because they didn't do what they were quote supposed to do, which is huge learning for me when they don't do something, right? Okay, this didn't work. Let's do plan B, or let's go do plan X, right? Don't skip a call. This is awesome. We're going to, I can learn from this, and you're going to learn from this. So when I onboard somebody new now, I'm like, please don't skip a call if you didn't do your action steps. Please.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad, guilty, ashamed, all those things. Yeah. It's got to be a safe space.
That reminds me of parenting. And I know not everybody's here as a parent, but the similarity is that children are developing, and even as adults, we're still developing. So development is always important. But for kids, if they make a mistake and they're afraid to talk to you about it, you can't teach them a better way. We have to
Right.
be able to kind of face those trip ups, those, I mean, even complete disasters. Like you still have to face them, but even the small things, right? Moving the needle, these little bits, if you can come in and talk about them, then you can find the way forward. And sometimes you can find out what's behind that too, right? Because often there's a motivating factor that at the end of the day, that in that moment, whatever it was that made you miss doing the action steps this week might be more important than the action steps themselves.
Right, exactly. And if I have somebody who like is committing to doing a first time home buyer class and they're just not doing it, and that, there's those excuses around, oh, the cat ate my homework or whatever, right? It's just like at some point we got to peel back the onion and start asking some really good heartfelt questions. And as it turns out, they might feel like they're an imposter teaching a class, and I say this with a lot of love. When my client gets emotional on the phone, I know I've hit the bingo, right? That's the thing. I feel like a imposter. That's not because the cat ate my homework or, my daughter was up at 3 a.m. It's, I feel like I'm an imposter. And then we need a coach on that. Right. So that's why it's the safe place. And the sooner we get real, we work through those barriers.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we are almost at time, everybody. Tanya, I think everybody here knows you well enough. For anybody who doesn't, let us know, what is the best way for folks to contact you?
Well, I am on LinkedIn and I am on Facebook. It's easy to find me. My email is super easy, TanyaBugbeeCoach@gmail.com. Send me a smoke signal and I'll reach right back out. Yeah.
All right. And then everybody, I always do this at the end of the show. Tanya, I am going to let you have the whole screen.
Of time so well, Nathan.
I try. Thank you. I'm going to let you have the whole screen and give us, some takeaway, some bit of advice or wisdom that you want us to remember after the conversation today. And then after you're done, I'll come back in and we'll say goodbye. It's all yours.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I so appreciate everybody being on and your comments. I think what I want to leave with, obviously my favorite word, which is grace, is give yourself grace as you're moving your needle. And it's okay if your needle moves backwards, get back on the horse and let's move the needle forward. And keep trying different tactics, right? If one tactic doesn't work, if you don't like door knocking, then let's try a different tactic, right? Give yourself grace and know that if the grapefruit diet didn't work for you, doesn't mean, you can't lose weight. And I hope Wendy says something around this, right? So we've got to figure out what's going to work for you, right? Is it more protein? So don't give up. Keep at it. Try something different. If you're watching somebody grow and it's not working for you, maybe put blinders on, like a horse race, right? And run your own race. It's okay if it's different than somebody else's. You might, actually move the needle quicker than they do. So don't give up. That's what I got, Nathan.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Tanya. I love it. Everybody, I'm going to put the chat overlay back on in case anybody wants to throw in some final goodbyes. Tanya, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, Tanya was kind enough to have me on her live show. It was maybe a couple of weeks before I started this. So that was kind of a nice warm up for me because I had never been like a dedicated guest on a show before. So Tanya, I appreciate you. Everybody in the comments, man, such a great group of people. And I love that Amber said this earlier about how we can in this community use first names of people that we all know. We know exactly who we're talking about. And this is like looking through the list here. This is, you guys are all those sort of names. Everybody have a great Wednesday. I'm going to take us out. I'm still not back perfectly in my groove since I'm just getting back from vacation. So I don't have the normal outro I have. But you should know that next week, Rob Gilbert is going to be here. We're going to have a great conversation. I'm looking forward to it. And I hope you will join us then. Thanks, Tanya. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.